slide shows sort of the overall view of Time Machine and its financial sustainability over the coming years and its ambitions. And this session really focuses on the bottom half here now in orange. So what is the potential for both participating institutions in the Time Machine organization and the Time Machine organization itself to make use of the opportunities posed by the KIC Consortium for Creative Industries. And we're extremely pleased to have the driving force of that initiative with us, Bernd Fesel, and he will be speaking later on what this KIC really is and what it can mean to us. So I'll just flip you through a number of slides quickly, and Bernd can give some more depth to the situation. Okay. So what is a KIC? A knowledge and innovation community. It's a large-scale European partnerships between education, research, and business organizations. That's quite fundamental, as Bernd has kept on saying, that all these three actors are properly represented. It's funded through a European Innovation Institute, EIT. You will hear that name quite a few times, which is one of the key instruments under Horizon Europe. The aims of a KIC are to foster a pan-European innovation ecosystem and tackle global challenges. So besides the economic side, you will also see the KIC being very active in things like climate change, diversity and inclusion, and things like that. It's not new. There are already 8 KICs in place on climate, food, energy, health, and so forth. So we're very pleased, and this is really, I would say, largely thanks to Bernd's relentless efforts, that culture and creative industries are now also being given that opportunity. Not surprising, of course. I think since 2017, 2018, many of us in the room have tried to make sure that culture and creative industries was really risen on the agenda, and of the key policymakers. We're seeing that back in all the funding streams, and we're extremely pleased to have that opportunity here. So Bernd will tell you more about how the mechanics of a KIC would work. The idea is that it would really kick in and launch in 2024. There will already be a lot of work needs to be done in the years in between, but it really is the aim to accelerate the recovery and drive the competitiveness of our industry. So we know that already 9.7 million people are employed in this industry. We have a substantial part of the GDP of Europe, and I think the aim is to really build that. So 150 million euros will be made available through this KIC for 15 years. Bernd will tell us more about co-funding, but that's where the opportunity is. So why pursue the KIC? I think I've already explained it. This is how it's put in the work program. Cultural heritage is an undisputed expression of, quote unquote, cultural identity, a public good, and a source of innovation. So that's where we need to build our proposal. We're joining forces. This is exciting for me, as I'm also the General Director of Europeana. We're working together with the Time Machine organization in leading this effort. Why is that a smart thing to do? It's smart for me because I think this alliance really benefits from the strength of both organizations. Europeana has infrastructure, we've got standards and frameworks and a strong network, and Time Machine has a vision for applying artificial intelligence, machine learning for future creative engagement in localized settings. And I think, to me, that is a future we need to pursue together. This is the timeline. I will not go into this. I'm trusting Bernd will say a few more things about this. The important things to remember is that in the first quarter of next year, we will need to really write and build this proposal. So that will take a lot of concerted effort. The call will close on the 24th of March, and then the rest of it, the year will unfold until September. We hope to be the lucky organization that wins the tender, because we need to understand, of course, it's a very competitive bid. We won't be the only ones submitting for this goal. A few words about why this is interesting to you. I think it's been mentioned a couple of times. 2024 is still a while away. But this is really why I think being part as a founding member or an associate member of Time Machine really pays off, because if you're with us on this journey, that will allow you also to be part of this tender, shape the tender, be part of the governance that will be needed to set up to govern not only the outputs, but also the funding made available for the partner institutions. So I'd like to keep it at this and hand over the floor to Mr. Bernd Fesel. Bernd, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harry. And happy to share my screen to show you my little presentation, and then most of all be ready for your questions. And I hope I could also show you a film on the mission of our application. So let's start with the presentation first. So I trust you all see it. No objections. So before we go into details how a KIC works, just again the context. Harry also pointed already to it, but it's worthwhile having the same holistic view on it again. I know we have some 50, 60 partners here. We are likely from very diverse backgrounds, just to make sure we have the same ground we are looking on this. The journey started some 15 years ago when the first report on the economy of culture was published in 2007. I think just by coincidence, or even not coincidence, at that time, the EIT, the European Institute for Innovation and Technology, was founded, purely focused on technology innovation. And at that time, I think the first iPhone just was out. So then the topic of culture, creative industries made their way through the European policy. At the beginning, it was culture, creative sectors, looking more on the non-profit side. There was a green book. Then 2012, there was attention to the spillover effects in other sectors and economies, the wider social relevance. And at that time, the phrase spillover effects was really new, not even defined. So our sector was really making its way into definition step by step. In 2016, for the very first time, the European Parliament published a coherent strategy calling for the DG's growth, education and culture at that time, and innovation and regional development to work together. And from there, taking it to the very last policy field, the innovation program, the largest in the world, Horizon 2020, at that time now Horizon Europe. It has been created an own cluster too, as you know, as I saw from your other slides. And beyond the cluster 2, creative industries is also to be found in other policy areas and funding areas, let alone now quite new, the recovery funds, which across all nations, we just did a little research on that, amount to something between 6 and 7 billion euros for the creative industries across Europe alone in the recovery funds. On top of this, this innovation community is now being launched, and there is the call out just since a few weeks, as Harry said. So it's not only the big funds, where you could say it's the golden time for creative industries, but also the mind shift to take cultural innovation, the immaterial side of the identity, into the innovation program. So in fact, to open our understanding of innovation, including technology and non-technology innovation. So this is, besides all the big buzz on funding, also a mind shift, which of course has been prepared and it trickled down for many years. You find it in the OECD manual. But just last week, for example, the Basque country made an own conference in the Guggenheim Museum. What is innovation driven by culture, creative industries? Because we still miss indicators and evaluation methods. So while this is a journey of 15 years, we are still beginners in this field. And now dive into the setting of the EIT. I just want to highlight again what this setting is. The EIT itself is funded out of Horizon Europe, gets itself some 3 billion euros to strengthen innovation ecosystems. So this program is not about funding a special product or a special project, but by funding projects, strategies, and products to come into a more sustainable innovation ecosystem, which is step by step also financing its own agency. So while a seed funding of 150 million euros sounds a lot of money, the aim is to reach another 600 million, which is coming not from the EIT. It is really a seed funding. It is not 100% funding to lay back, but just a kick funding to generate a business. And of course, this is a challenge, how to make a kick, a knowledge and innovation community, financially sustainable. Again, to highlight your perception on this, the knowledge and innovation community is about those three partners: business, research, and education. But it's also about the enablers, the SMEs, the national authorities, the NGOs, the cities. That's what Harry has been talking a little bit about, the localized innovations. So we will be working heavily with cities, regions, and rural partners. But it's also on the other side about venture capitalists and business angels. So a knowledge and innovation community demands from us all to reach out likely in new areas. And this has been done already in 8 kicks. And applying for this kick means also to apply how to dive into this innovation community, how to cross-innovate. It's quite important to see that the European Union supports this innovation agency, not only to help the creative industries. You could even argue why help the creative industries, because we have many sectors, if it wouldn't be for COVID, which are outperforming on economic terms many other sectors. So our thesis really is our sector is strong enough to help other sectors, to help large challenges Europe is facing, if it's in digital sovereignty, if it's in platform economy, or if it's in the sense of belonging and identity, which comes down very much to cultural heritage. And that's why also in our consortium, cultural heritage is a lead driver in our partnerships, in our content and strategy. And of course, creative cultural heritage is also relating to those other kicks. As you're all experts in this field, I don't have to explain this so much, but just to highlight it again, climate change, urban mobility, new ways of manufacturing, new ways of building buildings, new materials, all this is part of cross-innovation, let alone the renovation wave the European Union wants us to do. So this will all be a push for innovation in the cultural heritage field. Now, Harry spoke already about how is a kick working. And basically is a kick working by spending money outside of its partner to the wider ecosystem by calls and grants. So a kick is an enabler for the wider ecosystem and of course also its founders, but it's not a closed shop. It's an open system, not only incentivizing its founding partners, but beyond this. The idea is like in platform economy, everybody who joins strengthens the ecosystem. And the fundings are spent year by year in budgets like 30 to 40 million in 3 fields. In the field of entrepreneurship, education, innovation projects, and business creation and acceleration. We all know that the topic of skills for cultural heritage, if it's digital skills, social skills, if it's the pact for skills, if it's upskilling or reskilling, obviously a large topic. We will look into this kick in the field of vocational training, qualifying the companies out there already with new certifications and standards in vocational training, but also creating new masters and PhD programs. They are created by partners in the consortium, where, for example, Time Machine and Europeana bring in their competence on this field. But in a second phase, those new masters are also rolled out to other universities outside. In our consortium, you find about 22 universities. Just to pick out one leading network is UNA Europa, which are also focusing on cultural heritage, including KU Leuven, Krakow, Edinburgh, Sorbonne, Complutense in Madrid. The second line of action is in innovation programs. So how to support new products and processes, how to help students and young entrepreneurs to create innovation and to take it to a certain technology readiness level to then be able to go to the market and to pitch, for example, to investors. So one of our activities in the KIC will be also creating a creative investment fund, which pools all the venture capital, which is out there already now. We researched that currently about 30 billion euros are spent from venture capital into the creative industries. But yet, we still have one central marketplace. We miss a central marketplace. We don't have a European investment forum where people meet, and we don't have a mechanism where the best 50 startups from Europe are really funneled to those fantastic chances in capital. Same applies for seed funding from business angels. So just to highlight a few examples of what a KIC can build as a structure. And one of the other structures also relevant to build is also an IP policy. We see many stakeholders, if it's in the field of design or architecture, who lose their IP in the market. They cannot really, extract the value from it. So blockchain and other new technologies might also help to protect IP quite earlier and also to create more value from it, because we know in our sectors we have the very high-end successful companies like Spotify, Bertelsmann, or Ubisoft. And on the other hand, we have our single entrepreneurs who really struggle to make a daily living. The EIT wants us to support both, to scale the small companies, but also to help companies able to go global, to really go global and to compete with China and the United States in this global market we're in. The EIT is, besides the funding mechanism, also a mechanism of local hubs. It's a network of local hubs we dive in, which you can use, which you can cooperate with, which also gives a source of innovation. And I have to admit, before I started this here 2.5 years ago, this community was not known to me either. So it's widely unknown also to the creative industries, though billions have been invested in innovation. And we really hope that our KIC is also a bridge to this wider ecosystem. Now, in terms of bridge, I just want to present, just because we have not so much time, one example from our consortium, which has some 50 partners. And I want to pick here our most prominent partner, which is the coordinator for the next years to bridge between the application and the new legal entity which will be set up. And Fraunhofer is here a symbol of our understanding of innovation, which we ingrain here, of innovation within the creative industries. You will know that Fraunhofer institutes have invented MP3 for the music player, but just as well standards of video streaming today. But they're also ingrained in other KICs. So they are not only innovation in our sector, but also cross-innovation. They're in 6 other KICs, from climate, digital to urban mobility. So this partner will help us to go cross-innovation easily. At the same time, Fraunhofer is not only well known for tech innovation, but also as supporting and leading a cultural heritage research alliance. And that's where it perfectly combines with Europeana and Time Machine, where different networks and competences meet, to make the most value, hopefully, out of cultural heritage for society and economy, but also for our sector, or for your sector, for the cultural heritage sector, which of course has also its own expectations. And that's also one of the tasks we have with Harry and Frédéric, having institutions and partners which help us listen to what the needs of the sectors are. In our governance, we created a special tool called Engagement Board to be able to regularly listen to what the needs of our sector is. For my own career, I'm kind of a bottom-up identity. And so we will, in this consortium, in this KIC, try to mix, the best of the top-down approach with the bottom-up initiatives. And one of it is really to be needs-driven, to be user-centered. Yeah, and that's why I'm also so proud to be invited here. And thanks again, Harry and Frédéric, for having me to highlight this. This is a just simple visual showing in which KICs we will connect. So we have a big door in cross-innovation. This is just a highlight of all the institutes which are brought with. And now for the last topic, for the last chapter of my presentation, I want to dive into the possible impact such a KIC can have. Just imagine Europe by 2030 wants to have 100 carbon neutral cities, and this will mean reinventing houses, industrial buildings, as much as heritage buildings. It will mean reinventing fashion along new raw material supply and production chains. And of course, it means reinventing how to deliver green film, music, and content production. So culture and creativity will be daily part and parcel of this change for our climate. You all know the new European Bauhaus, and likely many of you are involved. So while this leads to a new economic model in the field of reuse by design and the circular economy, the new European Bauhaus also led to quite a shift in the perspective of culture, as Harry pointed to. It's now really understood as an eye level with our economic values, the intrinsic and identity values, the cultural values. And yeah, this just is symbolized by the engagement of Ursula von der Leyen. No, I think EU president has been doing this so intensively as Barroso when he started 2007 with a report on the economy of culture. So what a travel. Just to give you one more example of what a KIC can do, a KIC will be active in the field, of course, of fashion, looking into green fashion. The big numbers here from the notable brands we have in the field of fashion with $120 billion, but also $3,000 billion of turnover every year around the globe. While all those numbers are high on turnover, I think one of the biggest impacts is that the change of fashion retail will be also changing the future of belonging, the sense, the feeling of cities. So changing this city landscape is interrelated, and that also relates to the future of cultural heritage. So this plays all back into city design and city development. One last example from a very different field, from flooding. Climate change is underway. Sea levels will rise and flooding will come. So new approaches to flooding is being found, not only as it comes and goes and in between we live, but there will be a new mentality how to integrate flooding into living. And one of the thought leaders in this field was not a technician, but was an architect, Bjarke Ingels, who invented this big U after the Hurricane Sandy in New York. And yeah, with this last impact and outlook of what this KIC is up to, I hope I got you a little bit acquainted what this is about, how it will spend its money, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Oh no, I wanted to show you the film first. Thanks for your time and up for your questions.
Thank you so much, Bernd. Thank you so much for joining us today and for the insightful presentation. And with that, we'd be happy to open the floor for questions, a few questions for Bernd, or indeed Harry, about the kick. Please raise your hand if you have a question. None at the moment that I can see. Don't be shy. Julia, please.
Hello, Bernd. Thank you so much for your very clear inside overview of what ICE wants to achieve. I was a bit triggered by your mention of the fashion example, and indeed how our cities are changing, because I assume you're also referring to the changing of the shopping landscape and the disappearance of the physical. And that sort of got me thinking, we also think of Time Machine as playing a role in not only looking back to the past, but looking forward into the future. So to connect it with the whole idea of smart cities and urban planning and urban development, is this something that you see as part of this kick, that kind of thinking?
Yes, indeed. We see this, and we have a tool which we call knowledge tank, so to speak, to look into trend research, to look ahead. And just like other PricewaterhouseCoopers would do this, the trends in fashion tech for the next 10 years, what does it mean? And same would apply here, make a trend and outlook research. What will the change of cultural heritage mean for the change of cities, or the other way around? But I also think we will see and find out that the whole topic of digital twins and simulations will be also a new dimension in forecasting. We see this also in smart cities, that the complexity of change is so high. How to explain it, how to integrate people. And so simulations, I think, will be a tool to do so better in the future. And I think I haven't counted it finally, we have 3 or 4 high computing centers of Europe in our consortium, and be able to really do this, because calculating and simulating the change of a city is awfully expensive. You need a high tech capacity for this. And I have been to Stuttgart and visited one of 3 German supercomputers to get an introduction, what kind of calculation capacity we can deliver. And that's something maybe your partners can also use in a forward-looking future time machine. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much, Bernd. Please raise your hand if you have a question, or Harry.
No, I was just looking around the room, so to speak, and I see some people, some old friends from the Institute of Sound and Vision and national libraries. And I'm just curious how this resonates with you as partners in the project. Is there anything you'd like to ask? Because we now have Bernd in the room. That's an exceptional situation.
Yeah, please, don't be shy. Any question, welcome.
Yeah. Hey, Owen. Hi.
Hi, thank you, Bernd, for this. I was curious how the project will be structured. Will you follow like a structure in different work packages, or is it more like a business plan that you are presenting to the Commission?
Yeah, that's a really important question, because it highlights a very important shift. We are not applying for a project, but we are applying, to create a company. So what we are proposing and delivering in the bid is a bit of only 60 pages, but in 3 chapters. One is on our business and growth scenario. One is on our governance, like you pitch to an investor. And the other one is on content. And so in the field of business opportunities, you describe growth sectors, just as I did, for example, now here with the fashion industry. And in the terms of governance, you describe your supervisory board and so forth. So we don't describe work packages, but you could maybe say we describe strategies and markets. And that's what I was relating to. There are strategies and markets for innovation within our sector. So what's the digital future of cinemas? What's the digital future of museums, of all cultural institutions? But also, what will climate change mean for cultural institutions? So just to give you an example, a business opportunity in climate change for institutions is a standardization and certification of green standards. How do you measure really carbon-free? There is no carbon-free measurement standardized across Europe. So how could you compare the sentence, the Louvre is carbon-free, to the sentence that the Egyptian Museum in Italy is carbon-free? So all this still needs to be invented, and strategies for a company we set up for 15 years and more. So you could say it's large-scale work packages, yes.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. Is the consortium already finalized?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. But just to remind you, because of the network on Time Machine and Europeana, their members are part of our ecosystem and also part of making programs. We are inviting once a year to a very open meeting and session where you could also engage and propose innovation ideas. Just as I said, we listen, and we have really tools where you can pitch in if it's ready for it. And that's the only thing. Harry pointed already to it. We have to be patient. We hear if we win in July, we get a first grant for 2023, hire people, staff, and create offices. The first operational year is in 2024.
Maybe just to add something that was not explicitated. So the organization of the EIT Consortium is also based on various types of membership, but one of them is our founding members, so very like Time Machines. And like for the Time Machine organization, the founding members participate to the decision regarding the structure, the business model, the governance, and all these aspects that Bernd has been talking about. And the way Bernd has been organizing is a very bottom-up approach with a lot of, it's a big team, but it's really bottom-up with a lot of various sounding boards and processes, so to progressively reach a form of consensus in what to do. And how to in practice manage on the long term the various elements of governance, voting rights, and so on and so forth. And so the other thing which is important is, and correct me, Bernd, on that, but is that most of the partners which are themselves like Time Machines groups of partners. For instance, one representative representing I don't know, 30 universities or so, and so on and so forth. It's much this is the kind of base for this. So we have this form of like many partners in the EIT Consortium, this form of double, I would say, relation. One relation with the consortium itself, trying to collectively negotiate on what would be the best way on organizing the creative industries in Europe, and how should money flow, and how should investment be done, and what are the requested amount per members, and vice versa. I mean, how does this macro system relate to the people who are participating to the given infrastructure, in our case the founding members and the associated members of Time Machine.
With the founding members, I think we have about 6 or 7 networks like you are, but of course we have also global companies, like Ubisoft or Atos and others. So they're also global leaders in markets to drive change, but also single cultural institutions, which are global brands like Centre Pompidou. So we made a best of the best selection.
And if I can add an additional thing, I mean, at the first glance, creative industry seems super wide and super diverse. What's the relationship between the film industry, the music industry, the fashion industry? And from our own glance, we arrive from cultural heritage, which seems to be a sub part of this, which is fine. But I think what's becoming clear as interaction is going on and as they are the partners are trying to see how to organize the effort, is that in fact these themes are cross-linking around. I mean, fashions have linked with cultural heritage. Sustainability can be done in various ways, and among all things, the theme of the city itself, the future and the past of the city, the way it's linked with the creative industry, this becomes a very transversal theme, and this is obviously beyond, I would say, cultural heritage as a theme, one of the core issues that Time Machine is addressing. How do we aggregate the entire history of a city into a model, but also how do we welcome our vision for the future of the city itself, and how can we manage this in a digital twin mirror world approach? So this is. I mean, we're going to be more. This is becoming, will be, if we win, of course, but this will be clearer and clearer over the years. But these are the types of angle in terms of concrete exploitation and concrete entering in society that the participation to this KIC will bring to
Frédéric, just to take up your prompt, how to understand cultural heritage in this KIC. Of course, you could see it as a sector, as one sector besides the other sectors, but just as well, everything being today, if it's fashion or architecture, will be cultural heritage. So cultural heritage is a baseline for everything, as much as it's also related to the individual orientation, of a citizen. How you feel in a city is so much related to avant-garde art as much as to cultural heritage. So cultural heritage is really an underlying theme in the whole KIC, just as Harry pointed to with the citation at the very, very beginning. So it has a double role. And now in terms of operations, how can you leverage and participate? The funding which is put out by the KIC to the sector means, of course, you can apply for grants from year to year, but you can also participate in our innovation scheme to propose grants. You can be agenda setter, what to research in 2 or 3 years. Don't think of a KIC as a project which is finalized after 2 years, but think of it as a revolving tool to make programs you can later on apply for. We all know this phenomenon, Horizon Europe is putting forward calls and we say, oh my God, they missed the innovation I'm really interested in. Why didn't they make this call? And here in this KIC, you have the possibility also to be, so to speak, before the wave and help to create the focus and the agenda, what to support with innovation funding.
That's really great. Kevin, how much time do we still have?
Yeah, so we're a couple minutes over, but perhaps maybe we have time for 2 last questions really fast.
Great.
And then we'll
Yeah, let's do that.
So please, Nikolai.
Yeah.
Yes, hi. My name is Nikolai Dunitsky, and I'm first time with Time Machine. Let me introduce myself so that you know who's talking to you. So I had some days ago had a chat with Mr. Eigner, and I'm from Ancestry, and he said, just join it, listen to this, and look what's up there. And I have one question, and perhaps that we are partners with a lot of European archives and libraries in digitization. So that means we transform paper to digital or digital to better searchable digital by indexing. And my question is, so first of all, we look at the moment to see what Time Machine does and how we could support in a way. And when you talked about your application you're going to send out, my question is, what do you mean when you say content? What is content for you?
Yeah, Nicola, thanks for the question. I think it's not about the question, what's content for me, but what's content for the producers of content, you know? And of course, there's first of all, the definition of the European Union with the media and film industry. So it's a lot about digital content, but I think we have to be wider here and see also the immaterial cultural heritage field. So in the end, the topic content will not be defined as a phrase in the bid, but will be defined in the working by our partners, which bring in proposals and say, you know, in the field of cultural content, we want to innovate in these fields. And of course, likely what we might see as an content today might be different from what is defined in 10 years. So it's important to be, as we say, you know, a learning organization and listen to. I think if we go back a few years, you would hardly have said that YouTube is the largest archive for cultural heritage. But I think today this is a debate, and there we see how, you know, how our perspective is changing on what is content and not.
Yeah, thank you for the answer, and I see this absolutely the same. So years ago, when we started in the 90s, we were an IT company. Today, we have so much material that we are, meanwhile, an archive, and we face the same problems like an archive. And so that's the reason that with the transformation, there are suddenly a lot more collaborations happening in private-public partnership between non-profits and profits. And so I think it's a good way to think about this.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing this, your history in this field. Yeah.
Thank Nicolai. Kevin, shall we take one more question? I see one in the chat.
Sure.
That,
yes.
I think is quite relevant, and then we need to probably move on, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Harry. Yeah, so we have one in the chat from the Autonomous University of Barcelona. Basically, their inquiry is they're members of the TMO, and after hearing this, they're wondering how, if they can be a part of the KIC, and how do we plan on financing this proposal?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take that, and if Bernd, please chip in if you think there's something to add. The idea is that the Time Machine organization is participating. We're a member of this consortium, but representing you. So if you are one of the members of the Time Machine consortium, that if we win this bid, of course, will allow you to also benefit from the funding that will be made available through these grants and so forth that Bernd was talking about. So there is no separate funding needed, but of course the Time Machine organization needs to be kept supported through memberships. That's the business model at the moment, so that we can participate in this consortium. Bernd, do you have anything to add there?
No, this was a perfect wrap up. Thanks.
All right, great.
Excellent. So thank you so much again, Bernd, for joining us today. Very insightful, and we really appreciate your time. And also thanks to Harry. And with that, we'll move to the second part of the parallel session on another CSA consortium that the TMO is involved in, which recently submitted the proposal. I'll hand over to Frédéric to introduce Alexandre Caussé.
Oh, just checking whether Alexandre is with us. Yeah. Hello, Alexandre. Yeah. Okay. So I think it's very interesting. We decided to put these two initiatives in the same session, not because they are thematically related. In fact, they are not. I mean, what we've been discussing with the KIC participation is really on the level of exploitation, business models, economic sustainability, a link with stakeholders in the economic sectors. And here we're going to move down and back, much more closer to research. Which is corresponding to what in our planning to the pillar 1 of the Time Machine proposal. And it's a story which, like all these stories, I mean, nothing is done in a quick and short term. And it's a story that started 3 years ago, I think, when we were during the Time Machine CSA. When we started to understand the structure of powers in Europe and understood there would be no flagships, we thought, I mean, okay, there's probably going to be other types of instruments to finance long-term research. And among, I mean, the various partners which were interested in understanding this, there was the GPI on cultural heritage, which was a groupment of essentially ministries across Europe, which had their own way of organizing and setting up goals and setting up calls. And so we thought that was an extremely, I would say, complementary collaboration we could engage with that group, because in a nutshell, essentially, Time Machine was grouping stakeholders from various institutions, the academia, companies, but from a bottom-up manner, quite far still from the political level, and vice versa. I mean, the GPI and cultural heritage were organizing in a way a groupment of stakeholders that were very close from ministries and political decision. And we ran into contact with Alexandre and Pascal Liévaux, and we decided actually we should join forces. And so we traveled to Brussels together to see the various members of the European Commission and say, look, I mean, we are ready to pair a Time Machine plus the GPI to prepare something that would have both aspects and can be what was called at that moment a partnership to organize research in cultural heritage in Europe. And we received, I would say, well, first we learned how to get along on these aspects, and I think we got along well. And then we received on the one a positive answer. I mean, well, first they said, yeah, we think this is a great alliance. I think we should clearly. I mean, you have here most of the partners which are needed to set up a politics for Europe on this domain. But maybe that integration of all the work which is still need to be done in terms of governance, of structuring all, is not yet fully mature. So what we're going to do is publish a call, a CSA, a coordinated and support action, that will give you time to organize yourself, to bring the right partners on board, to set up a process by which the type of research that needs to be done, we are organizing research for cultural heritage, could be worked out. And time has passed. They promised, they did what they promised. They set up a CSA call, and Alexandre and Pascal Liévaux took the lead in making this, in organizing, I mean, the various partners on this. They actually worked also with our long-term partners, Schumann Associate and Odysseus, which know Time Machine very well. And we joined that consortium with the other partners and helped preparing that call, that submission, which was submitted in October this year, with answers hopefully next year on this. So to give you more information about that initiative and what it contains, I give the floor now to Alexandre Caussé.
Thank you, Frédéric, and thank you for inviting me. It's as you said, it's a long collaboration in time, and it's nice to see today all the partners behind Time Machine. I will share my screen. Is it working? Perfect. So yes, I will repeat some elements briefly that Frédéric already stated. Just to give you general information about this call, it's a call, of course, in Cluster 2 on Cultural, Creative and Inclusive Society, and Destination 2 on Cultural Heritage and Cultural and Creative Industries. The title of the call is to coordinate European cultural heritage research and innovation among member states. It's a coordination and support action, and the submission deadline was at the beginning of October this year. The budget is for a maximum of 3 million euros and a duration of 3 years. Regarding the expected outcomes from the calls, as they were drafted by the European Commission, It's to prepare a groundbreaking and a novel coordination network on cultural heritage research and innovation policies and activities, including the arts and the cultural and creative sectors. Then it's to identify research and innovation domains with European added value that would justify future activities, to propose new ways to engage stakeholders, users of cultural heritage and the arts, social innovators, civil society, and also the younger generation with cultural heritage and its role in shaping the perception of European societies, as well as the European sense of belonging. And finally, it's to develop an open approach to cultural heritage and the arts, fostering curiosity for new developments and diversity, as well to emphasize their role in transmitting of knowledge and building a bridge from the past over the present to the future. So these are the outcomes from the commissions, and they also require to take stock of lessons learned from previous initiatives in Horizon 2020, especially former ERANETs, but also all the public-to-public networks, such as GPIs. So to give some elements of background, that, with Time Machine, we submitted in September 2019. We signed a joint statement for research and innovation, promoting the future of cultural heritage. And then we met in Brussels and started preparing a fiche for a partnership for the future of European cultural heritage. So we really had this objective in mind to build a kind of alliance or network fostering innovative and collaborative research between different kinds of stakeholders, additional stakeholders, and not only ministries and research agencies that are now represented in the GPI Cultural Heritage. And finally, in November 2019, Time Machine joined the GPI Advisory and Scientific Board. In November 2019 as well, the European Commission announced that they would launch a CSA with the first calls of Horizon Europe. In 2020, we organized several workshops with them to prepare a vision for the future partnership, but also to prepare the submission of the CSA. There were some delays with the launch of Horizon Europe, as you know, and we finally submitted the proposal in October with a core group of partners from the GPI Cultural Heritage. So 18 partners are from this GPI, and many other organizations and also member states. The proposal is coordinated by the Fondation des Sciences du Patrimoine, to which I belong. It's a foundation gathering a great number of research actors in France on cultural heritage research. So we have some universities, archives, infrastructures, research laboratories, libraries, and the Fondation is also hosting the coordination of the GPI Cultural Heritage. And I'm working closely with the Ministry of Culture in France, who is chairing this GPI. And so Frédéric told you Pascal Liévaux is the chair of the GPI Cultural Heritage. So the name of the CSA proposal is ARCHE, Alliance for Research and Innovation in Cultural Heritage in Europe. There are 24 beneficiaries, 2 affiliated entities, 4 associated partners, and 19 countries in total. As far as we know, there was only one proposal submitted to the European Commission, which is quite a positive sign for the later success of the proposal. So here is the description, all the actors of the consortium. So I guess you will circulate the presentation. So I won't go into the details, just to show you a bit of the links between the different partners. So you can see that you have a core group of GPI partners and observers. Then you have also a group of countries participating in the IRIS and Hyperion HS initiatives, which are both aiming to implement a European infrastructure for heritage science in Europe. So IRIS didn't start it, but should become an ERIC soon. And Hyperion HS is a project aiming to implement some of the preparatory actions for the future ERIC. Then you have also the Alliance of Universities, Una Europa, which was mentioned in the previous presentation. So we can see already that there will be a lot of complementarities between the KIC and this CSA. You have, of course, Time Machine, the 4CH project on the Competence Center. Also the Elucidare project, which was H2020 project focusing on heritage, on diplomacy, heritage-led diplomacy. So here you have an ICROM, of course. Yes, sorry, I forgot ICROM, which has a long-term cooperation also with the GPI. So what we wanted to do is to create a kind of mini ecosystem that will be a prefiguration of what the future alliance could be and the different kind of partners we could include at the end of the CSA. So regarding now the challenges behind the submission of the CSA, we want to foster pollination between cultural heritage and digital technologies, artificial intelligence, environmental science and green technologies, as well as social sciences and humanities and human rights, by emphasizing the development of cultural heritage research and innovation as an interdisciplinary field. Then one of the challenges was also to facilitate convergences, interaction and transfers between cultural heritage and different economic sectors, in particular the cultural and creative sector, but also tourism, infrastructures, agriculture policy or whatever. We have many collaboration within the GPI with also other GPIs on climate, urban matters. And then we also wanted to develop and make broadly available new knowledge, skills and strategies for sustainable preservation, conservation, use and management of cultural heritage, as we already do in the GPI, but on a larger scale and involving more partners. So for that, there are 5 specific objectives in the proposal. The first one is to draw a comprehensive picture of the European cultural heritage research and innovation landscape. And then on the basis of this picture, propose joint action responding to needs by an efficient use of the existing resources. Then we want to develop a strategic research and innovation agenda that will be shared by all the partners in the ARCHE proposal and will be based on a holistic approach for cultural heritage. Then we will, of course, gear the ARCHE strategic research and innovation agenda towards innovation and concrete actions for creating also and developing innovative value chains. The fourth objective is to set up a purpose-built governance structure to promote involvement and commitment of partners in institutions and ensure efficient coordination. So that will not be an easy task, as we have very different kind of partners in this proposal, making ministries or research agencies work alongside with organization or association is not always easy. So the shape of a future governance scheme is going to be a very strategic point. And then we want, of course, to achieve a critical mass in terms of participating stakeholders and resources for the long-term and sustainable operation of this alliance. So as I said, the project will build on past initiatives such as ERANET and joint programming initiatives. So this is how the different objectives feed the methodology, the overall methodology of the CSA. Just to come to the work packages, you have 6 work packages corresponding to what I stated in the objectives. So a first one on mapping and assessment and drawing the whole picture. A second one that will design the strategic research and innovation agenda based on this first mapping exercise. A third work package on governance, and a fourth which will be dedicated to expand and build the alliance and also include new partners. And then you have, of course, a work package on dissemination and promotion, and all this is coordinated by the work package 6. Just to show you a bit how who is taking part to what in the work packages. So the work package 1 is coordinated by the Spanish research agency. So you have partners such as Paris University, KEA, which is a communication group, but also a group coordinating a network of more than 2,000 creative innovators. You have also CSIC, the Spanish Research Council, the French Research Agency. Then the work package 2 about the strategic research and innovation agenda is coordinated by the National Council for Research, the Italian National Council for Research. It will be assisted by UK and the Netherlands, but you have almost all partners taking part in this work package, as this is one of the most important work package to reflect of all the partner strategies in the document. Then the governance structure will be coordinated by the French National Agency. The work package on building the alliance by the Fondation des Sciences du Patrimoine in France. The work package 5 by KEA. And then the project, of course, is coordinated by us, the Fondation. Briefly about the strategic research and innovation agenda, how it will work. So the current and future needs will be identified through the mapping exercise in work package 1. The strategic research and innovation of the GPI will also be a base for this exercise, as 18 countries already did this exercise 2 years ago. And then there will be foresight done by ICROM, which makes this exercise regularly and is actually conducting a foresight with its many members. Then the vision and mission for the SRIA will be defined through a SWOT analysis and visioning exercise. And finally, the final SRIA will contain objectives, priorities areas for research, and an action plan to implement these priorities and key performance indicators. All this process will be backed up by stakeholders forums and workshops organized by the many partners of the CSA. Just to give you an idea of GPI cultural heritage priorities for research at the moment, these will not be the final priorities, of course, but they will maybe be a starting base for the process. So the first one is about a reflective heritage for a resilient society. The second one is on sustainable management for cultural heritage. The third is about cultural heritage in a changing context. And the fourth is on cultural heritage facing climate and environmental change. Here are some benefits, brief benefits for the heritage community that will come from this CSA. In particular, an increased coordination between cultural heritage networks and organizations in Europe. I included some of the ones that are represented in the CSA, and we hope to include more of them all along the process. Then an increased cooperation with heritage professionals also, and more relevance for the research results as they will be, we will try to set up some bottom-up process to include the research needs of heritage professionals and make that all the results that will be funded in the future by the member states and research agencies can be useful for the users. Then, of course, this CSA will allow to include more countries in the public-to-public collaborations. We already have Germany, which is not represented in the GPI. There is also Greece, Slovakia or Slovenia. All these countries will bring more funding for transnational calls, so we can already see concrete results with increased commitments perspectives in the future. And finally, of course, the importance of the CSA is that it will allow us to stay a key player for the potential submission of a future partnership on cultural heritage. Just few elements for the timeline. So the remote evaluation should be finished now. In December, there will be panel meetings. In January to February, ethics evaluation. The deadline for the results is the 7th March 2022, and for the grant agreements, the 7th of June. And if the ARCHE proposal is successful, we will showcase this CSA during an event that will be hosted in Paris the 15th and 16th of March in the framework of the French presidency of the European Council. So you have the link here, and I also invite all of you to take part to this event in March. So that will take place in the Louvre, in the National Library, and also in the Pompidou Center. Thank you. And please, if you have questions, because maybe I used some terms that are not familiar to all of you, so do not hesitate.
Thank you a lot, Alexandre. There's a question by Bettina. Do you want to ask it live?
Oh, why not? Hello, everybody. So you said, but at the 3 priorities at number 4, cultural heritage facing climate and environmental change, is JPI cultural heritage already JPI climate, I'm sorry, already involved in the CSA, or do you plan to do so?
GPI climate is not involved in the CSA, but we have now 2 years lasting collaboration with the GPI climate. We have been developing a white paper with the aim to launch a call in 2023 or 2024 on cultural heritage and climate.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? So maybe as people are thinking about questions, I think something which is remarkable, I mean, remarkable in what is actually going on now is, I mean, you should be in the place of the European Commission. They actually see a lot of various groups and organizations, initiatives, some organized in various ways, in infrastructure, and they essentially say, well, we need, of course, to get cultural heritage organized, and we will ask for the people to get organized in a structured way. On the level of creative industry, this is through the KIC call, but on the level of cultural heritage and research and innovation, it's through this particular call for CSA. And the thing which is remarkable is that the ecosystem is organizing itself thanks to the work of course, of certain persons that do with the work, but we see back, I mean, at different places, the various partners. We see that there are some partners which are in the KIC and in the CSA. There's the Competence Center, which was launched last year, which is now included also as a partner and interaction with that particular ARCHE CSA. So we start to see emerging, despite the complexity, a form of stable division of role, if I may, which seems extremely satisfactory, and which each of the partners is not redoing some things which are already done by some other groups, and this is, I think, a great achievement, which takes time, which takes a lot of interactions, and the work which was carried over by Alexandre and Pascal on that level is I think, I hope it will be of course validated by the European Commission, but it brings us to a very strong, sustainable ecosystem for the future years.
Yes, thank you, Frédéric. It's a very challenging moment, because I think as for the beginning of each program, the European Commission is putting some seeds everywhere and trying to see how it will grow and how it will match and coordinate. So now we really need to, and it's great to see that you are involved in the KIC and that many partners are in it also, so that we need to coordinate all that in the next years to make sure that we do not duplicate the same things.
So 2022 is, I mean, now we're all a bit in a kind of moment of expectation because things that have been launched in the case of the ARCHE will be launched in the case of the KIC in 2022. That means that in 2023 we will have a much clearer image about the organization of these various initiatives inside Europe and the shape of the European ecosystem for the next 10 or 15 years. Odysseus. Odysseus, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah. Hello, good afternoon. Nice to see people from the past here. Just to thank you for this presentation, Alexandre. This was great. I think it's important to say that here we talk about national budgets as well, not only European budgets. It's the member states agreeing to align the research agendas and fund in addition to what Europe does. Thank you.
Yeah. Alexandre.
Yes, exactly. And nice to see you, Odysseus. I didn't saw you in the room, but Odysseus helped us a lot in drafting this proposal. And yes, indeed, I mean, the future for the partnership is still very unclear, and there might be a second wave for submitting partnership in 2024, 2025. If there is no partnership, this doesn't mean that this alliance or network will be useless. Of course, what we will achieve in it is to increase the commitment and budgetary perspectives for the calls that can be launched by this alliance and by the member states and research agencies represented. So it's very important.
Yeah, and if I can add on that, Alexandre, I mean, any very large scale project is expected to be covered part from the European Commission and part from the member states. That was already the case for the time machine, for the flagship call in general. You had 500 millions coming from Europe and 500 millions coming as matching from the European state. And these second part, I mean, the involvement of the national state is super hard to get, generally speaking, and this is where most of the projects fail. I mean, they get money from Europe, and then there's no concrete backup by the member state, and so that put the project extremely at risk. One of the great strengths of the network, in the way it started for the case of the GPI and now towards this CSA, is that it started from the member states, which had their own transnational call without the possibility of having even more flexible call than European ones. And the fact that progressively it covers a larger and larger number of member states that get involved at the political level, that manage to talk in the same room, that knows about the global ecosystem. And this is the missing link. I mean, this puts them in that proposal in because of the so many years of political, I would say, cooperations between these various member states that put that proposal in a very good shape, which may, if we now project ourselves in the next 10 years, you may have some European supported action. If everybody does its job well, if the ecosystem is fine, and if results are satisfactory in terms of research, and if outputs are satisfactory in terms of economy through the KIC and all that, then everything is in place to have the connection with each of the member states' country to consolidate this as a strong long-term initiative, which is backed up by Europe, but also by the individual member states. And many things are still to be done, but some of the most difficult thing, I think, which is to be in direct linked with the ministries, are already in place. So that's why I'm super optimistic about this journey. Yeah. Are there any other questions? If not, I think we're reaching, I mean, the end of this session. This was a bit technical. It was a bit, European level politics and so on. Tomorrow morning, we'll back into very concrete things which are happening in local time machines. For those who discover for the first time the time machine community, they want to understand what is done. I mean, please go to tomorrow's session. You will understand what is done city by city with some features specific for each. You want to make a small publicity, Ilaria, on this for tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm glad to. Yes, indeed. So tomorrow morning, starting at 9, we have this session that we titled Technology and the Time Machine Community. So as you can well imagine, we will focus on some technical developments that have been happening throughout 2021. But we will also indeed explore a bit what the time machine community looks like today. We have 108 projects, and we started with this year with 15. So that's as our president was mentioning earlier today, that's indeed a big result. And then we will also focus really on the community involvement. So how can the people within the time machine community members, but also LTM projects, become more and more involved in these developments? So we really hope to see you tomorrow.
And for those who have not yet registered their local time machine, because we'll be presenting the official numbers, but we know there's a series of local time machines which are not yet in the databases. Go to the website. It's very easy. You have a simple form to fill, and you'll be part of the community very rapidly. See you tomorrow. Thanks for all the presentations and invitees, and we start at 9 tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.